Greetings, vloggers, followers, and podders. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty. Another week, another progressive week, another exciting week. Mostly exciting. I don't want to ruin the hopes that it was. It has been good for the majority of it. It's been a fairly good week. Just setting those boundaries as we talked about last week in the Forging Friendships series, which we're on right now. I did set some boundaries, and I feel better about that. But today we're going to talk more about something that is bothering you, or having an issue, with something. When you think of something, determining what's unacceptable or what's bothersome to you. So I want to preface by saying that um, you know, that this is I believe, sixth or seventh of my Forging Friendships vlog series. While I'm certainly no expert being in my mid-30s, I do have some insight to share about relationships with my autism community. The intention is to share knowledge and insight on topics of relationships, whether it be for dating or as a friendship, that are common issues that autistics face today. So with that, I want to go on and say that, in all essence, prefacing that with another preface is that communication is key. As we learned last week with setting those boundaries and determining those boundaries, something that I personally should have done a long time ago, but was not keen to that because I never had to set those, and I didn't, and I got into my second global relationship with that issue. But it's very important that early in the relationship or a friendship or whatever boundary you're setting with people, that communication is a key factor in determining how you're going to live your life. Because if you're not comfortable with something, you need to communicate that, and you need to communicate that in a correct and dignified and very appropriate manner, so that it doesn't offend the other party. You're not offended. You're not afraid of offending the other party. Things like that. You're not too overly rude, or because as autistics, we oftentimes are very blunt, very rude, and we just come out and say what we want to say without thinking about it. But sometimes when we say things, we need to think about them, and sometimes what we say, as much as we want to be gingerly and kind about it, um, it can set off triggers to people, both autistic and neurotypical, and they may or may not speak to us, or may not agree with us, and sometimes that's okay, because sometimes it's for our benefit and our mental health. So just keep that in mind too. So with that, so one of the things, the takeaways here, and I'll put this article that I pulled up on the description. But the one thing you want to do is you want to avoid blame. You don't want to blame somebody for doing what they're doing because they don't know. And sometimes they don't want to recognize it, or they don't want to know. Um, don't blame them, because it's an insult, and it's an insinuating that someone's responsible for that, and they may very well be. But you don't want to insult them for that. It's okay to state what they did bothered you, but don't blame them for it, because blaming them is just another way to make sure that you're the innocent one. And I think I've been guilty of that. I've done that. I think that I'm the innocent one, but I've done some things too that aren't helpful. Like ignoring things and not being things. And there is a difference in that. So no productive conversation will ever start off with a blame. However, lots of fights do. So you don't want to have a fight, because when we fight, we sulk, and we get upset, and we get angry, and that's not a good thing. So what you want to do is you want to show support while still addressing the problem. So you want to see if you can contribute, or be a part of that. Try to be there for them, as much as you can, because it should be a mutual friendship or relationship, whatever it might be. You want to be there for them too, and they may be struggling. Acknowledging the issue is in the form of a question is a good way to show that you're not okay with it, but also not throwing blame on them. And if their response doesn't show concern, maybe then you wouldn't have brought it up. And maybe it wasn't important to you. Hopefully, in the future, if they see it, they can work on it. The next one is avoid universal statements, such as always or never. Those are some fighting words, and while your partner may have a habit of doing things and saying words like always and never, it actually puts us on the defense that we're the problem and that it becomes offensive. And you know, it's definitely off topic, and it's directed at us. And sometimes we're prideful people, and that shows in our relationships and our friendships, and we get defensive and protect ourselves by throwing the blame back. You start with something with fire, you're going to add fire to it, and I've learned that recently. And I just know I can't. You can't fuel when you add fire, it fuels it, and that's not healthy in any way. And it doesn't set well with some people. So there's different personality types out there. People have different personalities, and if you're fueling fire, if you're throwing fire at them, it's just going to fuel it and make it a lot worse. um it's not it can be hurtful, and making those statements, and it's also very unproductive. So say maybe give a reminder, or you know try to keep on it, such a thing. Make a suggestion. Don't just tell. That's a good thing too. You don't want to tell. You want to what you should have done, or you shouldn't be told what you should have done. You should be told. No one likes being told what to do. Another great thing, and it's also a great self-advocacy tip, is using I statements. I statements are, that you don't feel it. You feel that it's focusing on what you feel. Um, you know, that's a bad thing. It feels like you're focusing on what you did, and rather than focusing on what they did, you're focusing on what you did, and it makes your partner feel more comfortable that you are not blaming them, but simply states that it bothers you. Um, it's a huge difference in the way people react, and they get defensive about it. And the goal should always be how to discuss their actions, how they affect their relationship, and not make them feel bad, guilty, or anything else. Focus on how you feel and how they feel, uh, because we all love being seen and understand for something that isn't right. Using I statements and getting at really what matters, whether or not they are punctual, doesn't mean anything. Whether or not it punctually hurts, or disrespects or you means everything. It's like they already know their punctuality is a problem, and they know how it affects you, therefore hinders relationships. So it's just something you have to think about, those three things. Sometimes things we don't like, and we have to communicate them, straight across the board, because if we don't get it out and get it out on the table, sometimes, you need to, it's hard. It's very hard, to say something's wrong, but you need to explain, how it makes you feel. If you want somebody to hear you, keep, you know, keep focusing, keep focused on the emotions. Never start by saying you always do this, or you never you. I hate it when you do that. Um, you know, I've noticed that this is. Instead, say, I notice this is something that occurs and it makes me feel like this. So that's very important. Work together. Some things work together, some things don't. I mean, it may not be the end, but you need to create barriers to make your relationship easier. Um, don't do it when you get emotional. That's another tip. It's not good to do that when you're not too good to argue, and not to have that emotional flare, because like I said, fire adds fire, and it just if you're adding fire to something, it's just going to grow and expand and be something that you don't. It's going to bring your energy down. You're going to be pissed, and then you're going to have to exert that energy, and you're going to have to regroup. But once you regroup, you need to be both calm and understanding, and not let it get personal. It has to be more rational. You should take out any negative charged words. Um, you might be upset at the moment, and coming at them with negative adjectives will only prove to escalate your situation. It's just you know you need to use positive words, and I try to be positive when I'm thinking, and sometimes I'm not, and that's sometimes the hard thing to do and the hard thing to accept. But in the end, I know, it comes across much better than, being negatively charged or attacking words. That's an issue. And you say you want to have the next one is, you want to have a discussion, not an argument. You don't want to have an argument. You don't want to critique them. You don't want to feel, you got to convince them that it convinces them that they're wrong. You don't want to, you want to have a discussion, not an argument. In an argument, there is no respect. It's two people with very different viewpoints who are trying to convince one another that the other is wrong. While on discussion, you maybe try out viewpoints on the table and come to agreement where both people are happy, and you need to explain the difference, and you might have a smoother talk as a result. You can always pull a what we need to talk. It may be so melodramatic, but ambushing your partner with a gripe will only get them back in a knee jerk, and which will help you solve nothing. So it's very important not to do that. We need to talk, because I can tell you when somebody says we need to talk, my anxiety goes from 1 to 100, and it doesn't help. It just doesn't help. It makes it it's something that's bothering, and it's very, rough. And you need to be honest and explain what the real issue is. They may not get why you're so bent out of shape when it comes to something. You need to explain what the real problem is, and you don't need to, freak out about it, but you need to be honest and, make sure it's clearly defined and clearly why you have an issue with something, and not condescending. And again, use that I, not you. While it sounds inconsequential, you might bring up a great change focus from your partner and put it on yourself. So don't make it seem blamey, where you're blaming that your significant other, and instead say, I feel this way. So that's just a good thing to think about. And you should always only focus on one issue at a time. It might be tempting to keep on that role and point out every flaw, but I know for a fact as autistics, we can't be bombarded with things, and having more than one issue on hand, it can be very tackling, and it makes us very defensive. You should always have a solution ready. When you come armed with an end result, it quickly becomes constructive rather than critical, and you should be ready with a solution of how you're going to solve it, and not just come up with something. It's very good. And lastly, you should reward yourself for reward yourselves for being good. If you brought up something that you weren't able to without shouting, fence clutching, or storm outs, reward yourself on a good job well done. Give yourself praise. It may seem cheesy, but it's good, and you should do that. So I just want to encourage you to do that. So that was just some points there on those relationships, and how to improve them. Just in our series, of how to deal with that unacceptable things. You got to stand your ground. I just want to close with, you got to stand your ground. And if something's bothering you, because we as autistics we have very narrow-minded thinking, and we can only think in certain ways. So I just want to ensure you that what you're feeling is valid, despite what others neurotypicals or fellow neurodivergents may think, that it's not valid, or it's you know it doesn't have validity to it. um but in honesty, it does. And if you're feeling that way and it's bothering you, you need to address it. You don't need to keep buying into it and keep you know letting it go, because if you're letting it go, you're only harming yourself, and you're only letting it eat at you more and more and more, and then you're going to eat at it more and more and more, and it's just going to explode. And when it explodes, it's not pretty. So just to keep that in mind. I want to thank you for listening to this podcast, this vlog. It'll be transferred into a podcast on Spotify and many other streaming platforms, if you're already there, at Dustin's Dynasty ASD. Be sure to like this video if you haven't already. If you want to hear more content, tap the notification bell. Subscribe to my channel if you like. I post videos every week. Also, give me a like on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the web at dustinsdynastyusa.com. I also have a Pinterest and TikTok at Dustin's Dynasty ASD. I want to thank you again for listening, and have a good week, everybody. And the next half will be coming up soon.